this topic the etiquettes of seeking knowledge. They normally call this topic the etiquettes of seeking knowledge, the adab of talib al-ilm. And sometimes when we say adab talib al-ilm, this etiquettes of seeking knowledge, people's minds, they go to just maybe having respect with the teacher and that's it. But that's not the etiquette of seeking knowledge. Etiquette of seeking knowledge is the whole methodology, right? And there are many books. This is one book, Ta'zim al-Ilm. Another book which you might have heard of is Hilyatu Talib al-Ilm, The Beautification of a Student of Knowledge by Sheikh Bakr Abu Zaid, which is a bit bigger than this book. Also, a book maybe bigger than that as well is titled Tadhkirat al-Sami' wal-Mutakallim, Tadhkirat al-Sami' wal-Mutakallim by Ibn Juma'ah. And there are other books also. But all of these different things which are mentioned in the etiquettes of seeking knowledge can be summarized into 6 points. All these etiquettes that we will take can be summarized into 6 points. The first, and these are also known as al-huquq al-sitta, the 6 rights. And all these etiquettes that we will mention, you can summarize them in one of these 6. So all these etiquettes and principles that we will learn can be summarized into these 6. The first is the right of the student upon himself. The first is upon himself. Or the right of himself. Right of himself. The second is the right of the teacher. You can say the right of himself, or you can say the etiquette with himself. Then the second is the right of the teacher, or the etiquette with the teacher. The third is the right or the etiquette with the place where you are studying. The place where you are studying. And make sure you write this down, it's not in the book. The fourth, the rights of the classmates. The rights of the classmates. The fifth is the rights of the books. The rights of the books. And the sixth is the rights of the knowledge itself. Rights of the knowledge itself. So again, rights of the person himself, rights of the teacher, of the place, of your classmates, of the books, and of the knowledge itself. So all these principles and etiquettes that we will learn, it'll come under one of these, right? So in how to seek knowledge, it will come under the knowledge itself. The right of the knowledge, the etiquette of seeking knowledge is that you seek it in the correct way. And then we'll also take some etiquettes with the teacher that will come under the teacher. Etiquettes of the books, that we don't put them on the floor, for example, and things like that. That's etiquettes of the books, and so on. You'll find that all of the ones that we take can come under one of these 6. And the Sheikh doesn't mention every single one. He doesn't mention every single etiquette because it's a small book, right? But he will mention the main ones and the main principles which should be upheld when it comes to seeking knowledge. And just before we do start, I want to mention the importance of seeking knowledge, the importance of learning about etiquettes. And that if we want to, we aspire to follow the Salaf, for example, then we don't just follow them in a certain chapter which may be Aqidah, or it may be Jarh wa Ta'adil, or as some people like it to be. But it is in everything, in their conduct, and even in their methodology, and even in the way that they sought knowledge. And when they came to learning about Islam and seeking knowledge, the first thing that they would do, it would be learning about the etiquettes. So Ibn Muflih narrated regarding, in his book Al-Adab Al-Shar'iyya, regarding Imam Ahmed, he said that 5,000 people used to attend the gatherings of Imam Ahmed. 5,000. Only 500 would be writing. The remaining 4,500 would be benefiting from the etiquettes and the conduct of Imam Ahmed. SubhanAllah. So only 1/10 of the people will be actually writing down. The rest will be just benefiting from the way Imam Ahmed carried himself. Likewise, Imam Malik, he narrates that My mother, she used to put the imam on me. The imam on me. When he was a young boy. And then his mother would say to him, اذهب إلى ربيعة. Go to Rabi'a. Rabi'a was the faqih of Medina at the time. Go to Rabi'a فتعلم من أدبه قبل علمه. Learn from his mannerisms and his etiquettes before you learn his knowledge. And you can see the importance that the Salaf are giving to these etiquettes and these principles of seeking knowledge. And there are many other statements. I mean, the whole chapter will come on it, chapter number 10, inshallah, which we will take next week. So we can learn more of some of these statements and the importance of etiquettes. But I'll finish with one more, which is very, I think, a very profound one, by Yusuf ibn al-Husayn. By Yusuf ibn al-Husayn, rahimahullah, where he says, بِالْأَدَبِ تَفْهَمُ الْعِلْمِ بِالْأَدَبِ تَفْهَمُ الْعِلْمِ. Through knowledge, through etiquettes, do you understand knowledge? Through etiquettes, do you understand knowledge? Meaning, if you want the true understanding of knowledge, you want to truly understand Islam with its principles, from its foundations, and be well grounded, then you can only do that through these etiquettes. Without these etiquettes, you can't understand. You can't learn about Islam properly. You might have information, but you don't have knowledge. You might have information, but you don't have knowledge. So learning about these etiquettes are very important. And one more thing before starting as well that I'll mention is when you're learning, and this is from the etiquettes but when you are learning, you need three things. When you want to learn about Islam, then you have to have three things. Okay? You have to have memorization, number one. Memorization. Number two, understanding. Number two, understanding. And number three, action. Number three, action. These three are very important. If you don't have any of these three, then don't consider yourself a student of knowledge. If you're serious and you want to learn about Islam, and you want to consider yourself a student of knowledge, you have to have these three. If you just want to come and relax, then that's up to you. If you want to be serious, then you have to have these three. Firstly, you have to have memorization. It doesn't mean you have to memorize everything. You have to memorize the main foundational points and principles. Especially when it comes to Quran, try your best to memorize the Quran. When it comes to ahadith, memorize the ahadith. Not obviously, memorizing everything ahadith is difficult. Maybe even simple books like the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi rahimahullah. These are hadith every student of knowledge should know. Every student of knowledge should have memorized this book. Likewise, main principles in the Sharia, these should be memorized. So, for example, the legal maxims from Kuwait fiqh, there are 5 main ones. We mentioned one of them yesterday. Who remembers one of the main principles in the Sharia? We mentioned one yesterday. Al-yaqeen la yazulu bil-shak. Certainty is not removed by doubt. This principle should be memorized. Because this is a principle which is used throughout the whole of the religion. We used it in Salah. That if you have doubt, if you've broken your wudu, you do not go unless you hear something or you smell something. That's this principle. We used it also if you have within Salah as well, you don't know, have you done 3 raka'at or 4? This principle is used. In Tawaf, this principle is used. You see water on the street, this principle is used. And likewise, so many chapters. Right? These type of principles have to be memorized. So memorization has to be there. Somebody asks you a question, and you say, "Oh, I remember taking it. Let me check my books." That's not knowledge. Knowledge is, like we mentioned, is what you can take with you into the bathroom. Can you take books into the bathroom? You can't take books into the bathroom. Because if you've got that knowledge with you, also that knowledge is accompanying you even in the bathroom. That's the first thing, memorization. The second is understanding. You have to understand what you're memorizing as well. It's not enough just to memorize just like that. Sometimes, there's 2 extremes. There are those that just try to memorize and understand everything and so on, but then they don't memorize anything. And the other extreme is they just memorize, but they don't understand anything. Okay? You have to have both. You have to memorize and also understand what you are memorizing and the meanings and the principles and the conditions and the application and so on. And then the third thing is action. That's the ultimate objective of this knowledge, that we act upon this knowledge. Some of the Salaf had said, everyone who obeys Allah, then he is a scholar. And anyone who disobeys Allah, then he's a jahil. Then he is a jahil, he's an ignorant. Why? Because what's the objective of knowledge? To get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you're not acting upon that knowledge, what's the point of learning? Right? So these three things have to be there. That's why I know in my other lessons sometimes I'll be a bit strict with some of you, and I test you and so on. But that is just so that we can ingrain what we have learned. I don't do it out of just making it difficult for someone, or humiliating someone, or anything like that. It's just so that you remember, you can solidify that knowledge that you have, that we are taking. And instead of it going from one ear and coming out the other, it remains, that it's memorized to some extent, and that you understand what we are taking. And if you've done that, then it's upon you to act upon it in your own time. So anyways, we'll start with this book. And like I said, look, we only have 3 lessons, so the explanation won't be a really detailed explanation, but we'll try to mention the main points that the Sheikh has mentioned, inshallah. And this book, the summary of glorification of knowledge, it's been translated by Mohammed Abdul Razak, who is a friend of mine. It is Muhammad, translated Muhammad Abdul Razak, who is from UK as well. He's a student, a master student at the moment in the Islamic University of Medina. So let's Allah to reward him for translating this book. So please start page 9. No, page 9. We'll just read inshaAllah. Translator's introduction. All praise is due to Allah. I seek His aid and assistance. I seek refuge in Allah from the evil of our own selves and the evil consequences of our sins. I bear witness that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is His slave and final messenger. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. To proceed, this is a translation of Khulasatu Ta'zim al-Ilm. Okay? The summary of the glorification of knowledge. The summary of the glorification or glorifying knowledge, authored by Shaykh Saleh Al-Usymi, who is a former member of the committee of major scholars and a teacher in Masjid Al-Haram in Mecca and Masjid Nabawi in Medina. May Allah preserve him and give him a long life upon obedience. This is a tremendous book on the mannerism and methodology of a student in his pursuit of knowledge. It is small in size but extremely beneficial in content. The reader will see. The original version of this book is taught by the Sheikh every year in his annual conference that takes place in Masjid Nabawi. Thousands of students have benefited from this book, and I hope by way of translating this book that many more will benefit from the summary just as they benefited from the original. It is my honest opinion that this book should be taught year in, year out to students who want to embark upon seeking knowledge. This is very true and very important. This is a book which isn't just studied once. This is a book that you should study again and again and again and again. So you study it with me once, later on, another Sheikh teaches it, attend that lesson and go through it again. Because these principles will be the foundation for your seeking of knowledge. In simple words, I would recommend this book as being a blueprint in how to seek knowledge, and Allah knows best. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make this work sincerely for His sake alone, and that He accept it from me. Indeed, He is all hearing and all knowing. I thank all the people that have aided me. Till the end of the introduction. That was the introduction of the translator. Now we move on to the Sheikh's introduction. So now we start the actual book. Okay. The author's introduction. All praise is due to Allah. I testify that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is His slave and messenger, and peace and blessings be upon his family, companions, and those who study and teach. The author rahimahullah, he starts off by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's not actually added this into the translation. The author actually starts with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim as well, so he missed that out in the translation. So the author starts off with the Basmalah, and then praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and sending salutations upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also upon his family and his followers. Now, so these four things, starting with the basmala, and then the hamdallah. Hamdallah, basmala means Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah means Inna alhamdulillah or Alhamdulillah. And then sending salutations upon the Prophet ﷺ and also his family and those who follow him. These four things are from the etiquettes of starting to author a book by ittifaq. All the ulama agree that if you want to write a book, from the etiquettes of writing a book and starting to write a book is that you start with these four things. And individually they all have their explanations, they have their importance and so on. But they're studied in books, and I mentioned many times. Why do we start with the basmala, following the Quran? It's in the hadith, following the sunnah, following the salaf, following the prophets, and so on. And likewise, alhamdulillah, they're mentioned many times in different lessons, so we don't need to go into them right now. But all you need to know right now is starting with the basmala, the hamdallah, sending salah upon the Prophet and as-salam, and upon his family and those who follow him. They are from the etiquettes of authoring a book by the agreement of all of the scholars. And then the author, he says, to proceed. Indeed, the slave's portion of knowledge depends upon the heart's portion of glorifying knowledge. And subhanAllah, this first statement is very, very powerful the way the Shaykh starts it. فَإِنَّ حَظَّ الْعَبْدِ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ مَوْقُوفٌ عَلَى حَظِّ قَلْبِهِ مِنْ تَعْظِيمِهِ وَأَجْلَالِهِ. That the amount of knowledge that you will attain is dependent upon something. What is it dependent upon? It is dependent upon the heart's portion of glorifying knowledge. However much respect and glorification you give to knowledge, that's how much knowledge you will attain. And if you don't really care, right, and you don't put in the effort, you're not going to learn anything. But if you're serious, you respect knowledge, and you uphold the etiquette of knowledge, then you will learn. So it is dependent, after the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's dependent upon you and upon your heart. How much do you want that knowledge? How much do you respect that knowledge? According to that, that's how much knowledge you will actually attain. So the person, so the Shaykh he says, so the person whose heart is filled with respecting, glorifying knowledge, his heart becomes a befitting and suitable place for knowledge. And that knowledge has to be placed in something, right? If that heart is a heart which is respecting knowledge and glorifying knowledge, then it's a suitable place for that knowledge to be, and that knowledge will be there. And if it doesn't have that respect for knowledge, it's not a suitable place for that knowledge, and knowledge will not enter into that person's heart. And depending on how much decrease there is in the heart from glorifying it, then it is the slave's portion of knowledge. Up until you find some hearts not having any knowledge within them. So whoever magnifies knowledge, يعني عظم, whoever venerates and respects and glorifies knowledge, the light of knowledge will shine upon him, and the messengers and tools of its fields come rushing to it. What it means by its messengers, يعني all of the ways in seeking knowledge come to that person, meaning it becomes easier for you to learn. Meaning it becomes easier for you to learn. So messengers doesn't mean prophet and messengers. It means messages of knowledge, yani the tools and the understanding of knowledge. Because you'll find sometimes, subhanAllah, some concepts in knowledge are very difficult to understand, and some are quite easy, and so on. But then you'll find some people, even the difficult ones, they understand it just like that. That's from the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And another reason could be, it's because of that glorification that person has of knowledge. If you see that this person glorifies knowledge, and he gives a lot of importance to knowledge, and truly wanting to learn in the correct manner, you'll find that he understands things a lot quicker than somebody who doesn't give that importance to knowledge. He does not have in his aspiration any goal except to seek it, nor in his own self any delight except to think about it. And this is the level that we should get to. We should aspire to get to this level, which is we do not think about anything. We have no objective, no aspiration, no delight, nor do you enjoy anything except knowledge. And the only thing you're thinking about is knowledge. And the only objective that you want to attain is a high level in knowledge. And we know the many virtues of knowledge. In the Quran there are many ayat. In a hadith there are many statements of the Prophet ﷺ. From the statements of the ulama, from the Sahaba, from the Tabi'een, and those after them, there are many, many statements. I don't need to mention them right now. But when a heart truly glorifies knowledge, then the only thing it is thinking about is knowledge. Right? Even in free time, it's not wasted. Even if they've gone out to eat, yani, what is it thinking about? It's not thinking about how many, let me chill here for a little while, drink more qahwa, and let me just talk. No, no. The only thing on its mind is either when can I finish so I can get back to learning, or even whilst they're speaking with friends, the only thing they're speaking about is knowledge. They will be discussing an issue, they're revising something. Why? Because their heart is full of the glorification of knowledge. And it is as if Al-Hafiz Abu Muhammad Al-Darimi rahimahullah intended this meaning when he concluded the book of knowledge from his book Al-Mustan Al-Jami' with a chapter regarding glorifying knowledge. Imam Al-Darimi, who's got his book famously known as either Sunan Al-Darimi or it's also known as Musnad Al-Darimi. Right at the end, when he talks about knowledge, he's got a chapter right at the end which is titled Bab Fi I'awam Al-Ilm, the chapter of glorifying knowledge. So the Shaykh is saying it's as though that Imam Al-Darimi rahimahullah, he understood this meaning that we are talking about. So he finished his book with this meaning to show that everything that we have studied will only truly benefit for you if your heart truly glorifies knowledge. The most helpful way in reaching a level of glorifying knowledge is to know the ways and points of magnifying it. And they are comprehensive principles that actualize the glorification of knowledge in the heart. So whoever takes these points becomes a glorifier of knowledge and a magnifier of it, and whosoever disregards them has wasted himself and followed his desires, and he has no blame if he falls off seeking knowledge except his own self. And then he mentions some lines of poetry. يَدَاكَ أَوْكَتَا وَفُوكَ نَفَخ. Whoever does not respect and honor knowledge, knowledge will not honor and respect him. No. That's not a translation of the Arabic. That's a different thing. يَدَاكَ أَوْكَتَا وَفُوكَ نَفَخ. That is basically, as he mentioned in the footnotes, it's an Arabic phrase that is mentioned when a person is a reason of his own destruction. Yani this line of poetry is saying that you've destroyed yourself with your own hands and your own mouth. And that's the meaning of the poetry. And applying it here is either you're going to benefit from the knowledge or you're not going to benefit. And what is that dependent on? Yourself. How much importance you give to that knowledge. Yeah? And then the last part, as you can see, which is in bold, is a very important part, statement which should be memorized. The first statement that the Shaykh started it off with was a powerful one, and the way he's finishing it is very powerful. وَمَنْ لَا يُكْرِمُ الْعِلْمِ لَا يُكْرِمُهُ الْعِلْمِ. Whoever does not respect and honor knowledge, knowledge will not honor and respect him. And you can see this. Somebody who comes and just listens, relaxes and writes, doesn't have any respect, doesn't put any effort in, doesn't uphold the etiquettes of seeking knowledge. Following day, ask him, what did he take yesterday? Doesn't know. The knowledge has gone. But if you find a student who's serious, he has respect for knowledge, he glorifies knowledge, he magnifies knowledge, he upholds the etiquettes of seeking knowledge, and with himself, with his teacher, with his classmates, and so on, you'll find that this is the person that has that knowledge. And you can see a clear difference between somebody who has these etiquettes and has this glorification for knowledge, compared to somebody who does not. So in this book, the Shaykh, what does he do? He's going to mention 20 principles. How many principles he's going to mention? 20. 20 principles in regards to seeking knowledge. And like I said, all of them come under the etiquettes of seeking knowledge. So the objective of this book, if somebody was to ask you, what's the objective of this book? The objective of this book is that the Shaykh is teaching you the different principles in how to glorify knowledge, which are also known as the etiquettes of seeking knowledge. And the principles of how to seek knowledge. Because how are these etiquettes, and if somebody establishes them, then he is truly somebody who is glorifying and giving importance to knowledge. So anyone who truly wants to be a student of knowledge, this book is a very important foundation for them. And like we said, a person should try to repeat this book over and over again. The first chapter that the Shaykh mentioned is number 1, تطهير وعاء العلم. cleansing the vessel of knowledge. We know that every single thing, anything that we have, like a liquid for example, it can't just float around in the air. It has to be something that you put it in. You have water, you put it in a bottle. You have food, you put it in a plate, for example. Likewise, knowledge is something you have to place it somewhere. And the place that you're placing this knowledge should be a place which is suitable for that knowledge to be. It should be a place which is clean. What is that place? The Shaykh will talk about it here. And the Shaykh says right in the beginning, وَهُوَ الْقَلْبِ, that vessel is the heart. The vessel is the heart. Meaning that knowledge, where does that knowledge go when you learn? Where is that knowledge placed? It is placed in the heart of a person. So you have to make sure that your heart is clean. So the Shaykh, he says, and depending on how clean the heart is, will knowledge enter. So the cleaner the heart is, the more knowledge it will be capable of taking. And it's very important that a person looks after the heart, and the Shaykh will mention a few ahadith in regards to that. So whoever, the Shaykh says, whoever wants to acquire knowledge, then let him beautify his inner self. Let him cleanse his heart from impurities, for indeed, and this part in Arabic sounds really profound, فَالْعِلْمُ جَوْهَرٌ لَطِيفٌ لَا يَصْلِحُ إِلَّا لِلْقَلْبِ النَّظِيفِ. Knowledge is a delicate, fine jewel. Jewelry. It does not befit except the clean, pure heart. So this knowledge, is something which is precious. And precious things you don't throw everywhere. If you have jewelry, you have something else which is expensive, precious, you place it in a place, you get a nice box or whatever the case may be, and you take care of that box or whatever it is, and you place it in a place where it is appropriate to be placed. You don't throw it around and so on. So likewise, knowledge has to be placed in the correct place, which is a pure heart. And when we talk about the purification of the heart, what are we talking about? The Shaykh mentions the purification of the heart returns to two great foundations. And when we talk about cleansing the heart, they come back to two main foundations. Number one, being cleansed from the impurities of doubts, and the second, being cleansed from the impurities of desires. And what are the two things that we should keep our hearts clean from? Doubts and desires. Ashubuhat wa shahawat, doubts and desires. And this, these doubts and desires include a number of things, especially three main things. It can be doubts and desires, the worst being shirk, doubts and desires regarding shirk. And then the second, bid'ah, innovations. You should also keep your heart clean of doubts and desires regarding innovations. That's why people of innovation, one of the names that ulama give them is Ahlul Bid'ah wal Ahwa, the people of innovation and desires. And following the innovation is only following a person's desires. And it's because otherwise they will be following the Sunnah. And also any other sin, all these other sins, anything which goes against the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doubts and desires regarding that, you should try to cleanse your heart from those things also. And then the Shaykh mentions something very, he gives you an example showing the importance of the heart. And he says, if you become shy of a creation similar to yourself, looking at your dirty clothes, then be shy that Allah looks at your heart, and within it is evil and rancor, sins and errors. And if we had, we wore clothes, and the clothes become dirty, how shy are we to go in front of the people, go clean it straight away, or we go change and so on? So if you are shy with creation like yourself, other humans, other people that have no power whatsoever, then why aren't you shy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looking at your heart, whilst your heart is full of evil, sins, filth and so on? And so it's very important that we look after the heart. And then he mentions the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where the Prophet ﷺ said in Sahih Muslim, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ وَأَمْوَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ يَنظُرُ إِلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not look at your suwarikum, the way you look, وَأَمْوَالِكُمْ, nor to your wealth. Allah doesn't look at these things. It doesn't mean if you've got more money, you have higher rank in Jannah. Or if you're wealthy, you're in Jannah, if you're poor, you're in hellfire. La, Allah doesn't look at these things. These things don't matter. And these things don't have any weight whatsoever according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does Allah look at? وَلَكِنْ يَنْظُرُ إِلَىٰ قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُم. Allah looks at your hearts and He looks at your actions. And there's also another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in Bukhari and Muslim, where the Prophet ﷺ said, أَلَا وَإِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةً. That verily there is a morsel of flesh in the body. إِذَا صَلُحَتْ صَلُحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. If that flesh, that part of the body is sound, then the rest of the body is sound. وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. And if it is corrupt, then the rest of the body is corrupt. أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبِ. That morsel of flesh that we are talking about, what is it? أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبِ. It is none other than the heart. So looking after the heart is something very important. And it's not, sometimes people think when we talk about the heart, tazkiyah, tazkiyatun nafs, purifying the soul and so on, people think, oh, this is maybe a Sufi thing, or no, it's not. And with that which is based upon the Quran and Sunnah is something which we should give a lot of importance, not just importance, but we should make it one of the foundation things that we give importance to. It only becomes an issue when you start adding things which aren't from the Quran and Sunnah. When you do it in ways where it's not mentioned in the Quran, not mentioned by the Sahaba or the Prophet ﷺ, and so on. That's when it becomes an issue. But otherwise, looking after the heart and acknowledging the issues of a person's heart and learning the ways of how to purify the heart, then this is something without a doubt, which is from the foundational issues of the religion. As we've just learned in this hadith, Allah looks at your heart and your actions. He doesn't look at anything else. And then the Shaykh, he says, من طهر قلبه فيه العلم حل ومن لم يرفع منه نجاسته ودعه العلم وارتحل. That whoever purifies his heart, then his knowledge settles upon it, and the one who does not remove his impurities, then knowledge leaves him and disperses. And then the Shaykh finishes off with a statement of Sahl ibn Abdullah rahimahullah, حرام على قلب أن يدخله النور وفيه شيء مما يكرهه الله عز وجل. It is haram upon a heart for light to enter it. And a light can not enter anybody's heart. وفيه شيء مما يكرهه الله. Whilst there is something in the heart that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dislikes. And we need to clean the heart. For example, Allah says in the Quran, سأصرف عن آياتي الذين يتكبرون في الأرض بغير الحق. That we will take people away from the truth. Why? Because they have arrogance upon the earth. This arrogance is an issue of the heart. They could have sought the truth, they could have attained this knowledge, but they were taken away from it. Why? Because of the issue with the heart. And likewise, any other issue with the heart. So the first principle when it comes to seeking knowledge is cleansing the vessel of knowledge, which is the heart. And that's why, if you look at the statements of the Salaf, right? They say, for Ibn Mas'ud, he used to say, ليس العلم بكثرة الرواية ولكن العلم الخشية. Knowledge isn't narrating a lot of narrations. You're sitting for an hour and just narrating. That's not knowledge. ولكن العلم الخشية. Knowledge is having the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is it? It is having the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he says, من عرف الله بأسمائه وصفاته وأفعاله أحبه لا محالة. Whoever knows Allah with His names and attributes and His actions, he will love Allah, and there is no doubt in that. So we need to ask ourselves. Sometimes we say Tawheed, Aqeedah, we say these words a lot, as buzzwords, but learning about Allah, learning Asma wa Sifat, has that actually placed the love of Allah in our hearts? If it hasn't, then there's an issue. There's an issue somewhere. Whether it's an issue with ourselves, with our hearts, in the way we've learned, somewhere there's an issue. So, it is important to know this first principle that the Shaykh mentioned, which is cleaning the vessel of knowledge. Now we move on to the second, which is an extension of the first, but it's due to its importance, the Shaykh has separated it. As you can see, number 2 is إخلاص النية فيه, making intention sincere to Him. When you seek knowledge, when or why do you do it? only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. You don't seek knowledge for other people. You do not seek knowledge for other people. So you don't seek knowledge just so you can please somebody. Nor do you seek knowledge to gain a benefit in the dunya, right? So I can get this position and so on. If that position comes and there's a need, you need to work or whatever, love us. And that's fine. But you don't seek knowledge for that reason. You don't say, okay, I want to make money. Actually, you know what? Let me go learn, for example, so I can get this position. We don't do that. Okay? Nor do we, okay, let me learn this so that I can argue with this person regarding this issue. Or that I can show to these certain people I have knowledge. We don't learn for that reason. Rather, we learn sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does it mean to make your intention sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Two things. Firstly, to purify your intention from everything, take everything out. And the second, you place only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in there. That's what it means to purify your intention for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the meaning of sincerity is that you purify the heart from intending anything or anyone except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you seek knowledge only for Allah, for nobody else. And then the Shaykh, he starts off by mentioning the ayah, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ. That they were not commanded to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except as worshipping Allah sincere to Him, and making the whole religion sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then after that, the Shaykh also mentions the famous hadith, actions are according to the intentions. Imagine you spend 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years seeking knowledge, attending lessons, memorizing, putting in that effort, and me making you stand up. Imagine you go through all of that and then none of that is accepted. Why? Because you weren't sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's no benefit whatsoever in, and this, subhanAllah, for example, showing off is a type of shirk, minor shirk, right? When the ulama talk about shirk, and one of the points they mention to show how bad shirk is that there's no benefit from it. No benefit whatsoever. And you do something for somebody, what benefit do you gain? Nothing. Right, so if you sought knowledge for other than Allah, instead of gaining reward, you're gaining sin. So forget not being benefit, you're gaining sin on top of that. So imagine you've gone from the best action that you can do, which is to learn about the religion, and you made it to the worst action just by your intention, which is shirk. No. And then the Shaykh, he says on the next page 18, the righteous predecessors did not surpass who they surpassed, nor reach where they reached, except through sincerity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you look at the Salaf, what allowed them to gain this high status? Their sincerity. Them being sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were sincere and truthful with Allah, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened up doors for them. One of my teachers, Shaykh Mohammed, he told us a benefit regarding Imam Al-Nawawi rahimahullah. Imam Al-Nawawi rahimahullah. In the Shafi'i madhab, two of the main ulama are Imam Al-Nawawi rahimahullah, and another one called Imam Al-Rafi'i. Al-Rafi'i. Shaykh Al-Maqrami, who was the Shaykh of the Shafi'iyya in Masjid Nabwi, he used to teach, I don't know if he still does. And I started in Medina, he was teaching, but I think he stopped down. Anyways, he used to swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he would say, Al-Rafi'i is more knowledgeable than Imam Al-Nawawi. He would say, Al-Rafi'i is more knowledgeable than Imam Al-Nawawi, rahimahullah. Okay, which of the two names do you know? No. Have you heard of Imam Al-Rafi'i before? No. Even though Al-Rafi'i was more knowledgeable, who's the one whose knowledge that people benefited from? Imam Al-Nawawi, rahimahullah. Imam Nawawi, for example, he's written a book on 40 hadith. Other ulama have written 40 hadith from the time of the Salaf. Shaykh Al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, even later on, Shaykh Al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah has got a book on 40 hadith. And Shaykh Al-Islam, even being his status, no one really studies his 40 hadith. Which one has spread? Imam Nawawi rahimahullah. He's got and 40 hadith. Anyone who wants to study hadith, what's the first book that they study? That book. Likewise, he has Riyadh al-Salihin. You won't find any masjid, and maybe, you won't find any house except that Riyadh al-Salihin is in the house. Likewise, in the Shafi'i Madhab, his books are the main books. Even in comparative fiqh, Al-Majmu', for example, I think about 15 volumes or something, right? His book, Imam Nawawi rahimahullah. And the ulama mentioned why, and Imam Nawawi, what age did he pass away? 45. It's a very, very young age. To get to that level, at only 45, he passed away rahimahullah. The ulama talk about what allowed him to get to that level, what allowed him to benefit the ummah like that, and for him to have barakah in his knowledge. It was the sincerity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if somebody wants to get to that level and he does it in the incorrect way, then he will never ever reach that level, no matter how much he tries. Al-Rafi'i was more knowledgeable, and he still has a high status. Don't get me wrong. Al-Rafi'i is still from the Imams of Shafi'i Madhab, but it wasn't not the same. He didn't reach the same benefit that Imam Nawawi rahimahullah was able to reach. And also, this is a principle as well in the Sharia. Quite fiqhiyya, they mention it. من تعجل شيئا قبل أوانه عوقب بحرمانه. Whoever tries to gain something before its correct time or in the correct manner, he will be punished by being deprived of that thing. And so if somebody he wants to become an alim, and he does it in the correct way, incorrect way, by whatever it is, whether it's taking the wrong path or even not being sincere, he will be punished by being deprived of having that knowledge. He will never ever reach that level. A person could be the most eloquent person out there, speaks the best, but he won't truly benefit the people if he was not sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how many times would you find sometimes a person is really eloquent, and maybe in that majlis people are crying, okay? But as soon as they leave the masjid, right, they've forgotten. And the actual benefit is not there. We don't do a speech just to make people cry and that's it. Right? It's so that they can benefit and change their lives. So you find somebody really eloquent, people are crying, but maybe he wasn't sincere. As soon as people leave the masjid, what happens? You forget that knowledge. But then you find somebody else, if you look at the ulama rahmahumullah, they don't speak in a certain way just to sound emotional and so on. Look at their lessons, they don't have these emotional nasheeds in the background. Okay? But you find they're the ones who are changing lives. Why? One of the reasons is the sincerity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Shaykh, he mentions a statement of Abu Bakr al-Marwazi, al-Marruzi, rahimahullah. He said, I heard a man saying to Abu Abdullah, yani Imam Ahmad, and he mentioned to him truthfulness and sincerity. So Abu Abdullah, yani Imam Ahmad, he said, بِهَذَا ارْتَفَعَ الْقَوْمِ. By this were the people raised. And what allowed the Sahaba and the Salaf to reach these high ranks? Sincerity and truthfulness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, a question may arise that just before that, the Shaykh, he says, indeed a person only reaches knowledge in accordance with his sincerity. And sincerity and knowledge, so how much knowledge do you attain? According to how much sincerity you have. And sincerity in knowledge stands upon 4 principles. And by way of them does the intention of the student of knowledge become actualized if he seeks it. And this is the answer to a question: how are we sincere in knowledge? How do we remain sincere in knowledge? Or maybe the question: what are the intentions that a person should make when seeking knowledge? What are the intentions that a person should make when seeking knowledge? And the Shaykh he's called them principles. Yani what are the principles? Or what are the intentions that a person should make when seeking knowledge? And the Shaykh mentions 4. He mentions 4 of them. The first intention that a person should have, and again, ponder over these. The first is removing ignorance from himself. Removing ignorance from himself. You learn about Islam, so you're not ignorant about what Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam have said. So he says, by studying those things that is upon himself from servitude and becoming acquainted with the goals and of the commands and prohibitions. The second is removing ignorance from people by teaching them and guiding them to what contains rectification of the worldly life and the hereafter. Notice this is the second, not the first. There are some people, they learn one small thing, and that's they think they're a Shaykh, and they start making videos and doing all these things and so on. No. First, focus on yourself. Right? Don't hasten. That time will come. Once you've learned and you've got a strong foundation for yourself in knowledge, then you can think about benefiting others according to the amount of knowledge that you have. But there are some people who learn a little bit. They've learned one juz of the Quran, right? Start Quran class. They've studied one book, just Usul al-Thalatha, right? Make their own poster, flyer. I'm teaching Usul al-Thalatha. That's not the way of knowledge. And you have to ground yourself first. Learn yourself first. Know yourself, and then after that think about benefiting others. Right? Especially when it comes to at-tasaddur, taking a position. Starting a class, doing something online, whatever it is. Whereas when it comes to just benefiting, you learn something in class today, then benefiting your friends and family, that's fine. Giving them benefits, telling them what's right or wrong, that is fine. But there are some that want to start, taking a position, teaching classes and so on. That comes later. In fact, many of the Salaf, many of the ulama, they didn't teach until very, very later in age. Sheikh Mohammed Al-Shanqiti, for example, from the senior scholars of our time, from the senior fuqaha of our time. And he comes to Medina quite regularly, and he comes once a month or every 2 months. 2,000 people attending his dars now, without any hesitation. And you find that other ulama cancel the lessons for him. He said he graduated from Medina University, and even before that he was studying with his father, and his father was also a scholar. He said he graduated from Medina, and his father still never let him teach. Medina University graduate. His dad never let him teach, whereas all of his friends became imams and started teaching and so on. And you would think graduate of Medina University, he's learned, so he's at that level where he can. And then 15 years later, he said that his father passed away, rahimahullah. So now he had to take the position of his father, and he started teaching. And he said, when I started teaching, I was only teaching at my house. I didn't start teaching in the masjid yet. But all of my classmates that became imams, all of them started to attend my lessons, and they were asking me regarding the basic questions of the religion. And he said, subhanAllah, that once they left that day, he started crying, making dua for his father, because he understood the wisdom behind his father's decision. And he said, when I graduated, I could have given a khutbah. I was able to give a khutbah. And even if you listen to the Shaykh now, his reminders are very emotional, very powerful. Right? Allah has given him the ability to speak, but his father wanted him to be well grounded in knowledge first. So not to hasten in these type of issues before benefiting yourself. So learn yourself, put time and effort in for yourself, memorize, revise, learn, attend, sit with your classmates and revise and test each other. These are things that you have to put a lot of time and effort into. And then later on, depending on the situation, and you should always ask your teacher for permission. Sheikh, I want to teach this, and this in this particular place. Do you think I am worthy, or do you think I should do it now or later? And if the Sheikh says yes, then go and do it. Okay? I remember when the first time I wanted to teach Al-Ajurumiyah, which is a beginner's text in Arabic grammar. I had memorized this book, and I studied this book, and I've memorized the book word for word, alhamdulillah. I went to one of my teachers and I said, Sheikh, I'm in my 4th year or 5th year of Medina now. There are some new students who are struggling, and I just want to maybe, as a revision for myself, and just to help them, nothing recorded or anything, just some students in the Arabic Institute, can I teach them? The Sheikh looked at me, and he said, no, not yet. He said no. And then about half a year later, I studied the book again with the Shaykh, and he tested me and so on. Then after that, I asked him, and the Shaykh said, yes, now you can teach. And subhanAllah, even though it was only a matter of months, the way I taught it, after the Shaykh gave me permission, there was no way I would have been able to teach it like that before the Shaykh gave me permission. Like I said, the ulama have already taken this path. They know the obstacles, they know what to do, they know what the knowledge is. Should always ask them for guidance when it comes to everything, when it comes to knowledge, especially when it comes to teaching. We ask them, Sheikh, I want to do this, and that. Do you think I'm at that level? If he tests you and he says, yeah, let's go for it. If he says no, you have patience and keep working on yourself. Now, anyways, the first intention is removing ignorance from yourself. The second is from others. The third is giving life to knowledge and protecting it from being wasted. This basically, preserving knowledge. Right? Preserving knowledge. By you learning, it's a means of preserving that knowledge. If no one learned, because no one would know the religion. And then the fourth is acting upon that knowledge. Acting upon that knowledge, and we talked about the importance of this. Even if you look at the Salaf, right? Look at the Sahaba. Abu Abdurrahman al-Sulami, what does he say? We took this in the tafsir, right? Usul al-Tafsir. He said that the Sahaba, and he mentioned Ibn Mas'ud and Uthman and others, he said they used to memorize 10 ayat. Then they would stop and understand those 10 ayat. And then they would act upon those 10 ayat. Only after that would they move on to the next 10 ayat. So you can see action. And this you can see, maybe you can add this in the beginning, I forgot to mention it before. When I talked about what are the things that we need when it comes to seeking knowledge, memorization, understanding, and action. This narration has all three. Sahaba memorized 10 ayat, understood those 10 ayat, acted upon those 10 ayat, and then they moved on to the next 10. And that's why at the end of the narration he said, فَتَعَلَّمْنَا الْعِلْمَ وَالْعَمَلَ جَمِيعًا. We learn knowledge and action together. And that's the objective. Then the Shaykh moves on and he says, Verily the Salaf, may Allah have mercy upon them, used to fear the loss of sincerity in the pursuit of knowledge, so they would be wary of claiming it, not because they never actualized it. And you'll find many of the Salaf, the importance they give to sincerity was so much that they would always fear not being sincere. And they always had that worry for sincerity. So you find some of their statements, and Imam Ahmad was asked, did you seek knowledge for the sake of Allah? He said, Lillahi Aziz. To say that I was sincere only for Allah, that is difficult. وَلَكِنَّهُ شَيْءٌ حُبِّبَ إِلَيَّ فَطَلَبْتُهُ. But rather it was something beloved to me, so I sought it. And this is from the humility of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. It's from the humility. If you find somebody saying, I was sincere without a doubt, then there's a problem. But as for, and the Tabi'in said that we met, I can't remember how many, about 20, 30 of the companions, all of them feared hypocrisy upon themselves. All of them were so fearful of not being sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another hadith of Huzaifah, the story of Huzaifah Umar radiallahu anhu, where Huzaifah knew the names of the hypocrites. Even Umar radiallahu anhu, being the Khalifa, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he would go to Huzaifah and ask, am I from those hypocrites that the Prophet mentioned? You can see how sincere they were when it came to their religion. And the Shaykh, he says, and whoever wastes sincerity has missed out on a great amount of knowledge and substantial amount of good. So it is befitting for the seeker of salvation to constantly check his foundation, sincerity, in all affairs, little or large, private or public. This constant checking will lead a person to seriously remedying, curing his intentions. Sufyan al-Thawri, he said, ما عالجت شيئا أشد علي من نيتي لأنها تتقلب علي. I have never struggled to remedy anything more difficult upon me than my intention, for indeed it constantly changes upon me. And my intention always changes, right? So I always have to make sure that my intention is sincere. And this is the reason why the heart is called qalb in Arabic, right? سمي القلب قلبا لأنها تتقلب. The word qalb literally means to change, right? So the heart is called qalb because it keeps changing. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're angry, sometimes you're whatever it may be. And you can be sincere to Allah, and very easily it can change. And that's why Sulaiman al-Hashimi, the Shaykh mentions on the next page, he says, perhaps I narrate one hadith and I have an intention. Maybe one hadith, إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى فمن كان, and it's one hadith, and I have one intention. I start this hadith for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if I reach a portion of that hadith, I've said a couple of lines, my intention changes. So then one single hadith turns out to need many intentions. I'm narrating a hadith, somebody walks in, or I see somebody's face who looks like he's enjoying what I'm saying. The intention changes like that. Within one hadith, you need more than one intention. What does that show? Intention is something which a person constantly needs to be looking over and revising and rectifying. So this is the second principle that the Shaykh mentioned. The third principle is to gather all of one's zeal, yani all of his desires and everything upon knowledge. And everything, like we mentioned, that you think about and your objectives in life, they should be focused upon knowledge. And how does that happen? The Shaykh, he says, you gather your eagerness by having three things. How do you remain eager upon knowledge? Three things. These three things are very powerful, what the Shaykh mentions. He says, to be ardent in that which benefits you, so when the slave is guided to that which benefits him, he strives over it. And ardent means al-hirs, to be eager upon that which benefits you, i.e., to have tunnel vision. The first point means to have tunnel vision. Just focus on that which benefits you. Don't think about anything else. Right now, what is the most important thing for you? What is your objective? What is that thing which benefits you? Right now, for example, I don't know how to pray, so I need to attend this and finish this book regarding the fiqh of salah. For example, that's your objective. That's what's going to benefit you. You just focus on that. What happens? You attend the first lesson, second lesson, third lesson. Then you find, oh, another Shaykh is starting another book. What do students do? They leave this book and they start another book. What happens? He becomes an alim of the first page of every single book, and after that he doesn't know anything else. Right? He doesn't learn anything. You've got an objective, you know what benefits you, focus just on that. It requires a lot of patience. It's difficult. Sometimes studying the same thing may get difficult, you may get bored, whatever the case may be. But if you truly want to benefit, then focus, have tunnel vision. What is your objective? Focus just on that. So if just focus, so don't add extra things. If by adding extra things you don't achieve your goal, leave them. Leave the other things which aren't as important, or that you can do later. Yes, it's very nice to maybe attend a hadith class, and a aqidah class, and a tafsir class, and learn the Arabic language at the same time. But if you've got full-time work, for example, or something, and you can't do all of that, don't do all of it. What do you need right now? Aqidah, and maybe you want to learn the Arabic language. If that's your goal, stick to them too, and that's it. Don't add a third thing now. You can add that thing later. The time will come for that. So the first thing is to have tunnel vision, to focus on that which benefits you and just focus on that. The second is seeking assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking aid and making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Alim, has all knowledge, and He is the one who grants that knowledge to whomever He wants from His slaves. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you that knowledge. And if Allah doesn't want you to gain knowledge, no matter whatever you do, you won't be able to gain knowledge. And if Allah wants you to gain knowledge, then you'll gain all the knowledge that there is. So constantly make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the third thing the Shaykh mentions is not to despair in reaching the level you desire. Don't stop. Do not stop. Don't give up. You started something, finish it. The main thing is being consistent. Sometimes it can get hard, but that doesn't mean completely leave it off. Why? What happens if you do that? You're gonna, all the effort you did put in, you're gonna waste it. You're going to forget. You've started something. Don't move on to anything else until you've completed it. You've started this book. Don't say, oh, now we're going to study Hilya Talib Ilm by Bakr Abu Zayd, or Tadhkirat Islam by Ibn Juma'ah, or the bigger books. We're going to study the books of Khatib al-Baghdadi, al-Jami', or whatever it may be. No, those books will come later. Right now we've started one book. We focus just on this book. Okay? So if you've started seeking something, finish it till the end. And the most important thing is consistency. You don't need to do a lot all at once. And I know some of our dawrat, like yesterday, was a bit long. That's only because we're only here for a short period of time. But otherwise, generally, just take a little bit at a time, and you'll see that all of that gathers up. And the more you do that, it'll become easier. I remember when I was in Medina, when I first started, I was 16. I used to study, alhamdulillah, in the morning, and then in the evening, Masjid Nabawi. But after Isha, and on the weekends, I wouldn't study. That's my time to relax and chill. Okay? I'd go out with friends. Yeah, I was only 16 at the time, so خلاص. Then what happened? Slowly, I added Saturday. Saturday, no, I started studying. So my only time to relax was after Isha and Friday. And then slowly, I did Friday as well. Okay, it just naturally comes. It wasn't something difficult. Naturally, it just comes. You get used to it, and you can add one more day. And then towards the end, even after Isha, you should start studying as well. How did that come? Did that come to me in the beginning? No. Slowly. Take it slowly, step by step, and it gets easier and easier, and you can add, and you can add, and you can add after that. These three things that the Shaykh mentioned, where has he taken them from? From a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. The hadith is, احرص على ما ينفعك واستعن بالله ولا تعجز. Right? Strive in that which will benefit you, and seek assistance from Allah, and do not despair. تعجز يعني do not give up, do not deter from what you have started. Try to memorize this hadith. In fact, any hadith that is mentioned or ayah is mentioned, try to memorize it. But this one's very profound. احرص على ما ينفعك واستعن بالله ولا تعجز. Al-Junayd said, no one sought anything with diligence and truthfulness except that he attained it. And if he did not attain all of it, then he attained some of it. Yani, you might find a lesson hard. That doesn't mean you stop the lesson. Usul al-fiqh, you might have found it hard. But if you stopped straight away, you wouldn't have benefited anything. At least the first time you understood a certain amount. Yani, that means the second time if you were to study it, you'll understand a lot more. It gets easier every single time that you study it. I think Usul al-fiqh is a good example for that. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, he says, if the star of aspiration rises on a quiet dark night, and it is joined with the moon of determination, then it shines upon the earth with the light of its Lord. And he's given a parable, and an example of saying that if you have high aspirations and determination upon something, then focus on that and seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't deter from from that path that you have started to embark on. You will achieve your goal. From the things that increases a person's zeal and eagerness and brings a person's zeal together is that you look at the condition of those who preceded you and to learn about their aspirations. Now the Shaykh is mentioning, and we've talked about how a person can focus. Find out that which benefits you and have tunnel vision upon that. Seek assistance from Allah and do not deter from the path. Now the Shaykh is mentioning another issue which is similar, which is how does a person have high aspirations when it comes to seeking knowledge? How does he remain motivated? How does he remain motivated? And one of the most important things that the Shaykh mentions is reading the biographies of the Salaf. This point where he mentions in this paragraph is basically reading the biographies of the Salaf. So every now and again, listen to the Salaf, listen to their biographies and how they were when it came to seeking knowledge. When you learn about their stories and the trials and tribulations that they went through, you'll see that by you reading, it motivates you that, you know what, I want to be like them. If they went through all of that hardship, they would travel for 1 month just for one hadith, I can do a 20-minute drive just to attend one lesson, and so on. For example, Imam Ahmed he used to go out, or he wanted to go out in his youth to the circles of scholars before Fajr. Look at Imam Ahmed. He would, as a young boy, wake up before Fajr, wanting to go to study with the ulama. So his mother would take him by his clothes, and she would say, "Wait up until the people call the adhan or they start leaving their homes." And wait, it's still dark. And as a mother would be, wait, and she would be stopping Imam Ahmed. Normally, it's the mother waking up the kids, telling them to go. But look how Imam Ahmed was. Like, he was eager. And his mom is the one saying, no, it's a bit dangerous. Don't go study now. Let the people go and then go. Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, he mentions the story, the paragraph, I'll summarize it, of how he read Sahih al-Bukhari, all of it to his teacher in 3 sittings. Just in 3 sittings. 2 of them were from Maghrib till Isha, Maghrib till Fajr, and the third one was the whole day from Dhuhr till it was from the third day was the morning till Maghrib and Maghrib till Fajr again. So from the morning until Fajr the next day. 3 days straight, because the third day his Shaykh had to leave. So he had to make sure he finished it within that time. And even Imam al-Zahabi rahimahullah commented on this and he said, who in our time can do this? But if you look, I'm forgetting the name of the scholar now, but there was one scholar, even after Khatib al-Baghdadi, he also was able to do it. He was also able to do it. I can't remember the name of that scholar, but he was also able to do it as well. So you want to get to the level of the ulama, and if you learn things like this, if they spent the whole day trying to learn and so on, we can spend 1 hour a day. What's 1 hour a day compared to that? Nothing, right? And then the Shaykh, he mentions other stories and other statements. We'll just go over some of them. We can read them any one time, just trying to save time. At the bottom of page 24, Abu al-Wafa ibn Aqil, one of the most intellectual scholars from the jurist of the Hanbali fiqh. He's got a book titled Al-Funun. They say it is 800 volumes. 800 volumes. This is the biggest book in history. However, the issue is, most of the book is lost and it's not reached us. But anyways, he used to say in his 80s, he used to say these lines of poetry: ما شاب عزمي ولا حزمي ولا خلقي ولا ولائي ولا ديني ولا كرمي وإنما اعتاض شعري غير صبغته والشيب في الشعر غير الشيب في الهمم. He used to say, my determination, my diligence, my mannerisms have not become old, nor my allegiance, nor my religion, and my generosity. The only thing that has changed in my hair is my hair not being its usual feature, and being old in hair is different to being old in aspiration. And you think I'm 80 years old, but my aspirations that I have and the amount that I want to learn, that's not old. That's in another narration of him. He says, my determination that I have in my 80s is more than what I had in my 20s. The only difference is I've got grey hair now. But being old in grey hair is not the same as being old in aspiration. There are people who are young in age and in body, but they are old in aspiration. They don't care whatsoever. And there are those who are old in age, but the aspirations are young. And don't think that just because somebody is old or has got grey hair fast, the time of seeking knowledge is gone. Like, this person can still seek knowledge. Bukhari narrates, تعلموا أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كبارا. The companions of the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم learnt كبارا, old in age. Majority of them, when did Abu Bakr accept Islam? What age? Same age, 38. Prophet became a prophet at 40 and 38. And other companions are even older. Right? Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he learned the qira'at, and the different modes of recitation, when? In his 80s. Not 20s, 30s, 40s, in his 80s. You know, some people reach their 40s and say, I can't memorize Quran. 30s, I can't memorize Quran, I'm too old. He's memorizing in his 80s, was 30, was 40, was 50. Right? So if a person has high aspirations and is serious, he can easily do it if he puts the time and effort into it. We won't start the next. We won't start the next one. We'll start the next week, inshallah. But I'll just finish with one other point, which is what are some of the other ways that we can raise our aspirations? What is another way that we can have high aspirations? The Sheikh mentioned one of them, which is to read the biographies of the Salaf. This is one way. Sometimes seeking knowledge, it happens. It happens to me now. Sometimes there might be certain times where you don't feel like studying as much. Sometimes you feel like studying a lot, and other times you feel like maybe not studying as much. No problem. No problem whatsoever. What do you do then? You look at these 5 points that I'm going to mention. The first, the Shaykh also mentioned them. Read the biographies and the stories of the Salaf. This is one. The second is read and revise the virtues of knowledge. Read and revise the virtues of knowledge. When you hear a hadith like the Prophet ﷺ saying, whoever treads upon a path of seeking knowledge, Allah will make his path to Jannah easy for him. You realize that this hardship that I'm going through, this is the easy path to Jannah. And if I want to relax, in Jannah inshallah. The path that I am on is the easy path to Jannah. When you hear, من يريد الله بخيرا يفقهه في الدين, whoever Allah wants good for, He will give him understanding of the religion. You realize, I'm understanding my religion now, inshallah, this is a good sign that Allah wants good for me. When you hear these type of virtues, it increases a person in his aspirations. The third is having good companionship. Having good companionship. A student of knowledge should always try to accompany those who will also raise his motivation. And he shouldn't try to hang around with people who will say, oh look, we have a few hours spare time, let's go out to eat, let's go to a coffee shop, for example. No. Try to be with those people that say, look, we have extra hours, let's say we have 3 hours. Khas, 1 hour for relaxation, no problem. But they don't waste the whole 3 hours, they say at least 1 hour, 2 hours, let's revise what we took in class. Or let's memorize for next lesson. Or have those companions which say, okay, let's revise this. And this is very important. Shaykh Al-Usymi said to us once that the students of Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah used to say, we benefited more from the students of Ibn Uthaymeen than Ibn Uthaymeen himself. Think about that. We benefited more from the students of Ibn Uthaymeen than Ibn Uthaymeen himself. Why? How? The classmates would say to each other, they would come, wake them up, right? Wake up, we need to go to this class, right? They come before Fajr or wherever it may be. Or come now, we need to revise. Or come, the Sheikh is doing a dars here, let's go together. The students would motivate one another. Right, we took this in class, right? We mentioned the 4 intentions of a student of knowledge. What are they? Test each other. They got questions, I don't understand this, what does this mean? They explain, this means X, Y, and Z. You can benefit a lot from your classmates, from your companions and your friends. In Arabic they say, as-sahib, sahib. Sahib meaning your friend, your companion. Sahib. Tashab shay, yani you pull them. Your friend pulls you. He pulls you into that direction that he is in. If he's serious about knowledge, he'll pull you into that direction as well. So always trying to surround yourself with like-minded people. The fourth is that if you do get bored of a certain science, no problem, move on to a different science. If you get bored of a certain science, move on to another science. If you're studying Aqidah, for example, you're studying a book, finish the book, but then khalas, after finishing the book, move on to a different science. It doesn't mean Aqidah, study 20 books in Aqidah, that's it. No. Right? Study 1 or 2 books in Aqidah, move on to fiqh, move on to tafsir. Right? Because what will happen is, it's like refreshment. You move on to a different science, it's different information and so on, something new. You re-energize, refresh yourself. And because you've gone away from that science, after a while, you'll miss that science and you'll want to go back to it in class. Then you go back to Aqidah and you carry on then studying the other books in Aqidah. And the last thing is not burdening yourself more than what you are able to do. Not burdening yourself more than what you are able to do. So, if you try to do every single thing at once, it will all go at once. You'll just burn out and not do anything. I mentioned, my own example. I started off with just the 5 days, class in the morning, in the university, and then in the evening, Masjid. That was it. If I tried to do 7 days a week, including after Isha as well, I would have burnt out and not done anything. Right? But slowly, you do a bit, then you add, and then you add, and then you add, and then you add. And these 5, Shaykh Amir Bahjat, he mentioned them in some lines of poetry. I'll quickly say if anyone wants to write in Arabic. And I'll screenshot it as well and send it. You can send it to the people. Anyone who wants to write it down in Arabic and memorize it, it's good. Not everyone has to memorize, but if you want to, it's good. He says, وَخَمْسَةٌ عِلَاجُ ضَعْفِ الْهِمَّةِ قِرَاءَةٌ فِي يَسِيرِ الْأَئِمَّةِ. There's 5 are the cure for low aspirations or weak aspirations. قِرَاءَةٌ فِي يَسِيرِ الْأَئِمَّةِ. Reading the biographies of the Imams. وَذِكْرُ فَضْلِ الْعِلْمِ وَالتَّعَلُّمِ وَصُحْبَةُ الطُّلَّابِ أَهْلِ الْهِمَمِ. And remembering the virtues of learning and accompanying those students that have high aspirations. وَنَقْلَةُ الْمَلْعُونِ مِنْ صِنْفٍ إِلَىٰ آخَرَ فِيمَا نَفْعُهُ قَدْ حَصَلَ. And the one who is bored, moving from one science to another in that which is beneficial. لكن لكي تعود نفسه مشتاقة وعدم التحميل فوق الطاقة. So that a person can return back to that same science, wanting to learn that science again, and عدم التحميل فوق الطاقة, and not taking more than what he is able to do. So I'll say it one more time, just Arabic. وخمسة علاج ضعف الهمة, قراءة في سير الأئمة, وذكر فضل العلم والتعلم, وصحبة الطلاب أهل الهمم, ونقلة الملول من صنف إلى آخر فيما نفعه قد حصل, لكي تعود نفسه مشتاقة, وعدم التحميل فوق الطاقة. Now, not everyone has to memorize the Arabic. Inshallah, next week, I'm going to test you in everything we've taken. So the 5 points you should know, not the Arabic, inshallah. So alhamdulillah, we've taken nearly a third of the book. I mean, the book, as you can see, is 99 pages. We've taken 25, we've taken a quarter, and obviously there's a bit of an introduction as well. Next week, we'll try to take the second third of the book. You know, because we are trying to finish the book in 3 lessons, the lessons might be a bit longer than normal. So instead of a 1 hour lesson, we might go over 1 hour 20 minutes, something like that. But that's only so that we can finish the book in time, inshallah. And like I said, you know, this is a very, very important book. Make sure you revise this book, learn what we have taken, and even after finishing the book, repeat this book again and again and again, and go over it again and again, because this really gives you the foundations in how to learn and how to be serious when it comes to seeking knowledge. Any questions before we finish? طيب سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
5 points you say first read the biography of scholars. The second point.
Revise the virtues of knowledge. The virtues of knowledge. All the hadith, ayat, statements of ulama regarding knowledge. Muhammad.
You said like sometimes, you know, when the Sheikh who is sincere with the knowledge, you know, his knowledge spreads. But likewise, sometimes we see, you know, some batil things also spreads out. How do we, you know, if someone asks, like, someone, you know, claimed that, you know, you see this book, this is taught everywhere, in every part of the world, so that shows the intention of the, you know, author, even though it was not.
That is knowledge, but that's not considered beneficial knowledge. That's not considered beneficial. When we talk about sincere, it's not restricted to just spreading. That's just one point. And just because somebody's knowledge is spread doesn't mean that it is, that it is correct. That's a sign, but it's not always the case. And what normally happens with the majority of Ahlul Bid'ah and so on, you'll find that they don't spread like the works of Ahlul Sunnah. They spread for a while, maybe in a certain place or a certain time and so on. But if you look at Ahlul Sunnah, look at the Salaf, their books, right? How many books do we study? Rasul Sunnah, Ahmad, Ha'iyya, whatever the books, right? Until now they are studied. Ahlul Bid'ah, their books aren't like that. So even in terms of spreading, it's not the same. And even if it is, then that's not the, it's not a condition for a person to be sincere that his knowledge has to spread. Many ulama are sincere and their knowledge doesn't spread as well. Okay? There's other factors as well. That's just, one point just to show the importance of sincerity. Allahu A'lam. Okay, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. والله شيخ هذا صعب.